I love you. Ain't nobody do addiction better than American entertainers. Welcome back, everybody. I am the Green Traveler from Gore.
I am the Faceless Leon. I, too, once sang out of this faceless void. And today, we're talking about singers, American singers in particular.
Well, who'd you entertain?
Who'd I entertain? Mostly high school parents. And but I used to do like this is very much an Indiana thing, but I'm sure they have competitions throughout the United States and other countries like this, but ISMA is what it's called in Indiana. I know the I stands for Indiana, so anyways, we would go and
as for singers.
People. Well, it's for singers and musicians at the high school level, and I was in a couple of different occasions being judged in front of them, mostly through what is called the Harmony Connection at my school anyways. And one time we went, the group was particularly good, but then that teacher and the choreographer, the pianist of our group, she got fired and kicked off campus because I guess I don't know exactly why, but I think it is because she was drinking on campus. Only because one time she had this mini fridge in her office that was like, go ahead and grab a water bottle from there if you feel like your voice needs it. So that we weren't, because, in high school you need hall passes and shit to go to just the drinking fountain and shit. So it's just easier for her to keep some chilled water. Anyhow, one day we cracked into one of those water bottles and it was not water. So I think that's what happened. I don't know. I'm not naming any names.
Troubled waters of your past.
Yeah. Then we got a new teacher and she really couldn't care less. So our group really wasn't all that great anymore. And a lot of the
American dilemma right there.
Yeah. A lot of the people from the group quit when the first teacher was fired. In fact, I did too, and then I joined again later because a couple of friends were like, "Hey, we should go do this thing." I was like, "Yeah, I used to do that." But yeah. And now I don't know that I could do it anymore. I haven't trained to sing in a really long time.
Yeah. I only sing in the privacy of my own home. Or in my car. I'll sing embarrassingly with the windows down in my car sometimes.
Hell yeah.
Roll up next to somebody at the stoplight and just look over and be like, "Hey, what's up?"
Who's this little green man? Who's singing to Rihanna?
Just bopping away, man. Yeah, we're talking a bunch of older singers. I think the most recent singer was Val Kilmer's. Oh crap! I'm already forgetting his name. Morrison.
Jim Morrison. Yeah,
Thank
Jim
you.
Morrison from The Doors. He only the most recent because he died just a couple years after Judy. Really.
Yeah, but Judy was like
close.
famous for stuff long, like
of course,
way before him. And honestly, of these three, the only one that I really listened to growing up was Jim Morrison and The Doors.
Oh yeah,
that's the music my parents loved.
Right.
So,
but it's kind of hard to avoid having listened to, at least in passing, to the other two because they're so big in our culture and the base of our culture. Like, obviously, Judy Garland's famous for singing songs from the movies that she was in, and everybody knows Somewhere Over the Rainbow. And Billie Holiday. Personally, I think before I watched this, I knew her more by name. Really, just name recognition. I'm happy that I did watch United States versus Billie Holiday to learn a little bit more.
I can agree with that. And that's the first one we're going to talk about. So you just want to dive on into it?
Sure.
It's based on the novel Chasing the Scream: The First and Last Days of the War on Drugs by Johan Hari, and directed by Lee Daniels, written by Suzanne Lorraine Parks. And it's about Billie Holiday, more focused towards the end of her life. I would say about the last 10 years-ish. I don't remember how long.
I don't know. It seems like it
spans.
spans quite a bit of time. I think the story that they're telling starts in the 40s, right after the war. Because at the very least, Agent Fletcher, he has his uniform on at the beginning.
Yeah, and Jimmy Fletcher's come back from the war. Becomes a detective. You know, he's just trying to get by, basically. And Billie Holiday is, you know, famous vocalist. She has, you know, a lot of songs that are enrapturing the public. And the FBI is growing a little afraid of her because she has one song in particular called Strange Fruits that is very detailed, very harrowing, and the FBI doesn't want it heard because it also exposes racism, specifically in the South.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that the song itself is a depiction of a lynching.
Yeah, they really just don't want her to perform that song live because the song's already out in the public atmosphere. People already know about it. And so they're really worried about her performing it wherever she's going. And I think the film made mention that it comes just after a anti-lynching bill was brought up in Congress and denied and turned down.
Right.
And it's a bill that's still, as you find out, it's, you know, even today it still hasn't been enacted. Yeah. So in that regard, you know, this is a very important film to watch because it exposes just another part of our history that's just been covered up in our education. Yeah. I mean, we know it's going on, but at the same time, we're not really teaching people or exposing it too much. And this film tries to do that. I mean, that's kind of the crux of the story is watching her journey, trying to perform this song live, while simultaneously telling about her addiction issues.
Right.
And sadly for me, that was the part this film did really poorly on, was her addiction, because it just focuses so heavily on it, which I know it's a part of her life, and I know it is like a very important aspect of her life. Right. But this film just seemed like it had to keep reminding you that she's addicted to something. It seemed like every single scene was like, hey, by the end of it, I felt like there were only two types of scene for this entire movie. Hey, she's an addict, remember that. Or, hey, remember, she cannot trust anybody in her life. And it's just like, all right, it's very sad, and I get it, but at the same time, it just doesn't feel like a story's there. Right. You know, for somebody who's so iconic, and this film just like didn't really seem to want to grasp that legend and, you know, tell a more, I don't know, right, riveting story.
I will say something about that, something that I read when I was doing some research after watching, which is usually how I go about it, so that things that I research don't affect my opinion of the watch. Man, I feel like that sounded really pretentious. But anyways, that's still how the critic's dilemma. Approach this show. Anyhow, what I read was that while there's a lot of rumors about her life, there's very little in the way of like actual records on things that occurred, especially when it comes to things about her relationships and stuff, because back in the day, especially queer relationships, you had to keep quiet, you know, otherwise, because it was illegal for one. Yeah. And also, obviously, narcotics were illegal as well, and that's a big part of the film too, is given just the title alone, the United States versus Billie Holiday, Agent Anslinger. I don't remember his first name off the top of my head. Boo. Yeah.
I think it was Henry, something like that.
His ass, something white. Anyways, he basically he was a big old racist and didn't want to change the status quo of white supremacy and stuff like that in America, and saw Billie Holiday as a threat because of that, mostly because of her song, and to give him an excuse or a way to stop her, at least from this perspective of this film, he went after her for the drugs and the war on drugs, which I don't think that this is really in too high dispute. I don't know, maybe it is, at least from my perspective, it is a well-known fact that our government started this war on drugs primarily as a disguise for a race war, really.
Yeah, I think you're in the right. I don't think that's really disputable. I think it's well documented, like you said, because that's the crux of this film. It was a win-win for Anslinger because he's like, I get to bring down this popular black woman, and at the same time, I weaponize this entire new industry of drugs.
Right.
Weaponize is the wrong word. I don't know how to.
He
demonize
yeah,
it, I guess.
Definitely. I mean, obviously, and this is kind of part of Jimmy Fletcher's perspective at the beginning of the film too, is that the public can see how drugs are affecting people, especially in the black community, and he thinks that what he did is morally sound because drugs are so destructive. But the truth is, like, a lot of people turn to drugs because A, mental health issues, or B, just so much pain of just trying to make it in this world that they want something to dull that edge.
And I think he definitely realizes that too, because at the beginning, like you said, he thinks he's doing the right thing, and obviously future interviews and stuff, he's mentioned that he felt guilty about his actions, right, about how he assisted the government in the investigation or in the fight against Billie Holiday.
Right.
You see his reaction to drugs change because, as you said, like at the beginning, he's kind of straight-laced. Right. The first time you see him, he's in a military uniform, he's clean cut. And then as he gets to know Billie and understand what drove her to where she's at in life, he opens up more to it and starts to understand not the benefits of doing drugs, but why people would go there.
Exactly. He starts to understand that, and I think he realizes that sending these people to prison is not the right answer. And he was under the perspective that arresting her for this would get her sent to a hospital. At least that's what it seems like in the film. And in the film, Billie also thought that would be her punishment. And she's like, yeah, I shouldn't. This is wrecking my body. You do get one thing about having it so focused on the addiction is that you do get to see Billie go back and forth between I want to get well and I just need a fix. That is what addiction does to people. People who are addicted, they typically have the realization sometime along the line that they're slowly killing themselves, and they'll try to get better, and then they'll backslide. And I have several people in my my life who are addicts, and who are luckily, because I feel like our culture treats it a lot better nowadays, and with the rise of psychology, are able to get the help they need and actually stay on track and stay clean more often than, say, how society treated addicts and addiction back in the day.
Especially the circles we keep.
Yeah.
We keep a very considerate and
we try.
Emotionally buoyant friend group, I would say.
Yeah.
We try. We definitely try. I don't think we've mentioned yet the actors who play. This is a poor segue on my behalf, but I don't think we've mentioned the actors yet. Billie Holiday is played amazingly by Andra Day, who was just nominated
for best leading actress. I think we both kind of agree that we wish the title of the award was best leading female actor. I think we both agree that the term actress is a bit dated.
Yeah, I've stopped using it the past few years because it's a weird thing to segregate a job title to be male or female. Like, I know there's a lot of thoughts on it on the feminist side and why it should be kept. So it's, there's arguments for everything, honestly.
Sure,
but me personally, I don't like. I've been trying to get that kind of language out. It's like if I see a male and a female together, I don't say, "Hey guys, how are you doing?" I say, "How are you too?" Sure. I try to stop denoting just like a sexual pronoun for everybody.
Right.
So that's just been like language I've been working on. So I agree that I think because my argument a long time ago was they shouldn't have a best actor and best actress. They should just have a best actor.
Right.
Problem with that is you're just going to get a male selected most times. So
right.
I think best female actor is probably a better title.
And that's just because the industry is still so saturated in a patriarchal view. It's doing better, though. It really is. I think that especially the last 5 years really been pushing for change in the industry.
Well, yeah, the Academy widened itself up to more people. It was less because like maybe a decade or more ago. Speaking out my ass again, I don't know the specifics, but more than a decade ago, I would say most of their members were older white men. Nowadays, I feel like they have a pretty diverse Academy that chooses the nominees and everything. Still very white, probably. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know the facts, the deets on them.
Yeah. I did want to know. I don't know. I'm not trying to say like yes, we did it first because obviously they were considering her for this award for some time, but before they announced it. Anyways, we were planning on doing this threesome before the nominations came out, and we were like, oh, good, because we're also planning on doing a special Oscar episode. Is that going to be next week?
I think so.
So look out for that. And so
nice
we're
plug.
glad that we got one more. Thanks. We're glad that we got one more Oscar-nominated film under our belt before we go in to talk about that.
Yeah, still so many that we missed, but
right.
I feel like this is like the one year that I was like more prepared because a lot of the times they'll choose films that in the before times pre-pandemic I would typically just go to the theaters for those big blockbuster films because that's what excites me about the theaters, those movies. And without the theaters, I've been watching more of these on the couch, since they're all being streamed. It's been so much easier to catch all these films that the Oscars have nominated.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel more prepared for an Oscars film this year than I've ever felt before.
So, anyways, to kind of to move away from just the Oscar buzz, I would say it's Andra Day, right? Or is it Andra?
I believe it's Andra.
She was awesome. Definitely, for me, the best part of the movie. And she deserves the accolades, and I could very much see her winning the award. And I know we've said that about maybe 4 other performances from women actors, but I do think that this might be the strongest of the ones who are nominated personally.
The one thing that really impressed me about her performance in this film was her voice, because it's so spot on. It's so beautiful, and especially when she sings. Like as the movie goes on, that voice gets scratchier because of all the she smokes a lot, age, the drugs, everything weighs on her voice, and that was like the most brilliant part of her performance was that change in her voice for me, because it was just really spot on. It was so subtle, and like I don't know if you put the end next to the beginning and play like 2 scenes back to back, there's just like a very subtle change. It's so great.
Definitely her good job on her part. And I think I do want to mention that I really enjoyed most to all of the performances, really, I would say. But there was some things about this film that just kind of didn't make me feel like it was the best movie in the world. And it didn't get nominated for such anyways.
Much, yeah.
But I would like to say that Trevante Rhodes as Jimmy Fletcher was very interesting. And the relationship that was portrayed was honestly one of my more favorite parts of the film, was their relationship. Mm-hmm. And really doing some research on that, it's like in the realm of possibility. But there's no actual fact behind their sexual relationship. But anyways, they're reported of having several long conversations together and of keeping close after the initial incident that he was involved in that got her arrested and sent to prison for a year.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that was my favorite aspect too. But the problem for me is the film spends so much time focusing on Billie's addiction issues and so little time on everyone around her, and especially with Jimmy Fletcher, because I feel like he's really well developed, but they don't go into his mentality very well, if that makes sense. Like, there's so many times where it could be played up like, I don't know if he's being serious with his intentions on her, or if it's just part of his job, if he's still trying to work his way in. The film could play off of that, but it doesn't.
Since they focus so much on the drug thing, and the title of the film suggests that it's the government going after her, I would have liked to have seen more from the actual government side of this. Like, there are several scenes where they plant drugs on her and stuff like that, but they really don't do much with Anslinger's character besides that he is her villain. But there's also they have two husbands in the film that are depicted. She was married a couple more times, I believe, than that. But the two husbands that they depict in the movie, they both are in cahoots with the government to plant drugs on her and try to get her arrested, or to try to get her to name her suppliers. And I think that one thing that they did in the film, but I think it was just a slide at the end, was say that on her deathbed, they arrested her for possession of heroin, and it was planted on her. And honestly, I don't think they played that up enough. I do like the scene they ended on, where she was pretty much saying, "Fuck you guys, I'm not gonna name names." That was pretty great. And I don't know that I wanted to see her, get dragged out of her deathbed either.
I don't think they dragged her out of her deathbed. I think they just handcuffed her to the hospital bed.
In an article that I read, they did say that she requested the hospital to continue her methadone treatment, but the agents who were arresting her basically vetoed that, and I think that's basically what killed her. And she already had cirrhosis, and she was also trying to get clean right at that moment, but the shock to her body from going into withdrawal without the help of the methadone, that's probably what killed her. That I didn't see those specific words in the article I was reading, but it did say that she had requested to stay on methadone, and that was not allotted to her, which that's very sad. Terrible. I think they could have done more with that.
Yeah, definitely. They could have played up a lot more of this, because as we'll talk about in our next movie, Judy, that movie builds on her addictions and her sorrows and why she turned to the life she did. Whereas this movie kind of just presents it once and calls it good, and or they'll mention it in passing in like a single sentence or something. But we watched Judas and the Black Messiah recently, and that had the character of Roy Mitchell, who there was a depth to his character. There was a lot of meaning to him, and it made him a good villain. And as you said, they don't do anything with Henry Anslinger. They have this great villain. I mean, he's not a great person. He's a good villain, though, that they could build. And this movie just kind of makes him a cardboard cutout. He's just there. And I don't know. It's like I'm happy that they focused on Billie, but in the perspective of a movie, there's just not much there to this film. It's just I don't know. It just kind of passed for me.
I would say that there is more similarities to the storyline of Judas and the Black Messiah and this movie as well, given that both main characters, well, I would argue that Judas and the Black Messiah was from the perspective of Lakeith Stanfield's character, but one of the biggest name character is civil rights person, and then they're infiltrated by federal agents. Very similar, and the government uses other black people to do that because they know that white people wouldn't be able to get close to them. And it's both stories are from the perspective of the government, very cruel. But I don't know. I do think there's more to say about this. What's fictional and what's truthful in the film. I would say that there are some things that are hard to believe in the movie that are true, according to my research. So, but just as any biopic, when you go and watch this movie, because I do recommend watching it, because I do think there is a level of importance to this movie. Just go into it knowing that some things, particularly her relationship with Jimmy Fletcher, are heightened for the movie. And I do give this movie a full face. Like I said, I recommend watching it, but its focus could be in other places, and I think it would be a much stronger movie. That's what I gotta say about it.
Yeah, I'll bounce off that with I give it 2.5 stars. I think I do recommend it. I mean, just because her story is unique and entertaining, but I don't know. It's just Lee Daniels' directing was just so dry for me. It was so unfocused, or just too focused. So narrow focused for somebody who's so legendary. And it's just, I don't know. It's a very missed film for me, and it was really sad because I really wanted to like it, but I don't know. I just had to like push myself to get through the movie, because after a while it was just so much of the same over and over again that I was just waiting for, I was constantly like looking at how much time was left. So yeah, it was just a disappointment for me, but that's all right. So yeah, let's move on to Judy. I don't know if we actually mentioned that Billie Holiday actually came out this year in 2021.
That's
Judy.
True.
Yeah, Judy's a couple years older, 2019. Right. Did you want to synopsize that?
I will. Yeah, I will. Most of you, I would hope, know Judy Garland, big movie star, especially when she was younger, played Dorothy and The Wizard of Oz. That's what I know and love her from mostly.
Same.
But this focuses on the latter part of her life, really the last year, I would say, mostly the last few months of her life, but not right up to the end. No. It's mostly focused on these concerts that she performed in London at the Talk About Town, which when I watched the movie, I did not catch was actually the name of the theater.
I did.
I thought she was going on tour. I thought she was on tour, but the people that she was working with were just at one theater, and I guess it did always look like the show was at the same theater. But for some reason, I thought she was going on tour, but whatever.
No, it was Dumbledore's theater.
It was Dumbledore's theater, yes. Michael Gambon is in this film.
Such a bit role.
Yeah, it's a small role, but it was what it needed to be.
Yeah, he was entertaining, no doubt.
Yeah,
I mean, everybody in the film was entertaining, but it was just funny that they chose him for such a smaller role like that.
Yeah, it is kind of weird, and maybe that's because maybe he wanted to be in the movie, because they even mention in the film that England was quite crazy about Judy. Mm-hmm. And that might have just been played up for the film. I don't know. But Michael Gambon is playing Bernard Delfont, and he is some kind of managing position in the theater. They had some kind of French name that for his position that I don't know. I didn't know how to say it. But anyhow, he is in the film, like you said, bit role. But really, the movie is about her struggles, and the reason why she decided to do this, according to the movie, is to get enough money so that she could go back home and be with her kids on a more permanent basis.
Yeah, because her addiction had pushed her away from him. The father of the kids, her ex-husband, I don't remember
Sid Luft.
Thank you. He had basically, I don't think he worked the courts, but because of incidents in her life that occurred because of her addiction to alcohol and other, I don't know what other drugs she was into, but
they're mostly sleeping pills.
Okay,
which is what she eventually overdosed on. That's what took her life.
But yeah, because of the incidents that occurred because of her addictions, her kids were just safer at their dad's house, and
right.
And that's part of the hard part about watching this film is like, throughout the movie you get those glimpses into their life with their father where they're like, oh, we're happy here. It's like he tells her that, and it's just like you're kind of hoping it's like, oh man, I hope he was just being mean, but you get a phone call later on, you're just like, oof, yeah.
Yeah, and those scenes work really well for this film.
Mm-hmm.
There is a couple things that I'd like to say about Sid Luft. For one, there's no evidence that he flew to England to have that sit-down chat with her about the kids. But Judy, while she was there, reportedly did have a decision on her own that maybe it would be better for the kids if they stayed with him, because she figured he was, at least this point in her life, the more stable parent.
Mm-hmm.
She, however, did reportedly, and like, while they had their relationship kept on going back and forth during their divorces, or that sometimes fell through and they stayed together and whatever. She did in the courts say that he was an abusive, controlling husband.
But no, they kind of play up his abusiveness and, well, maybe not his abusiveness, but his controllingness in this movie pretty well. Because you get that in that conversation, you get that he is fairly demanding of a man, but a controller of the situation.
And while they were together, he was also her manager.
Yeah.
Which, if he's abusive, as she says he is, and controlling, that could be a problem. And she's as evident from this film, Judy faced that her entire life, especially when she was on contract with MGM.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked up the stuff that they portrayed with Mayer, one of the heads of MGM, and apparently it was pretty damn accurate. He was he had a penchant for the younger girls under his contract and control, and basically when somebody signed a contract with them, they were owned by Mayer, essentially, and she was controlled down to what she could eat. She was given diet pills, and because the diet pills kept her awake, she was given sleeping pills, and that she kept that dependency on those sleeping pills for the rest of her life. It's very sad. It's
terrible, and I mean, it reminds me of Harvey Weinstein today. We still have these issues of controlling women in the entertainment industry, and that's where this movie shined more than the Billie Holiday movie for me, because both of them are equally hard to watch, and both of them are I feel bad saying this, but they're both kind of boring after a while.
Sometimes, I would say.
Yeah, but the thing with Judy is it continued to build on her addiction. It continued to build on why she's an addict. It continued to show you why her life is tragic. There's moments in Billie Holiday, they have a couple flashback scenes to her childhood. They're very deadpan scenes. They're very delivered and forgotten. Whereas in Judy, it builds on her character, and I don't know, it was more entertaining to watch. Entertaining is not the happy chipper version of entertaining, but more enrapturing, I guess.
Sure. You were more drawn in.
Yeah. And I don't think we've mentioned yet that Judy is played by Renee Zellweger. And, I think she delivered a performance just on par with Audra Day's, in my opinion. It's very, very much into the character. There's a lot of sorrow driven behind her, and a lot of fanatical sorrow too sometimes. Like she can really go for the crazy, just off her mind on drugs, or on alcohol.
I would agree
even.
That this is an incredible performance by Zellweger, but I don't know honestly how I feel about her performances in general. I think that she's very adequate in every role that I've seen her. I won't say I've seen her in a role that I thought, she did terrible. But for me, she's just kind of, I don't know. I guess I kind of have trouble not seeing her. This role in particular, though, she really was in that role. She was Judy to me. But, I also am familiar with Judy Garland. So at the same time, she really, she wasn't quite Judy also at the same time.
Yeah, there was a bit of Renee in there.
Definitely. But I think she did great in this role and she deserved her Oscar. But I would have to disagree. I do think that Andra Day, just her performance alone was the fucking what do I want to say? It was the best part of that movie, and it really outshined. I don't know. I think it's award worthy for certain, as this performance was too, as I said.
Yeah. And I can agree with that. I think we talked before we started recording about this that Renee was given more to perform with. With Billie's, there's a lot more covered up. There's a lot more that's brought to question because it wasn't recorded. But with Judy Garland though, her story it's more caught on tape. Because she performed a lot. It was people at least there's more public knowledge of what was going on.
It's also a little bit later in the 20th century. I would agree that it was a stronger movie. I will agree with that for sure. And yeah, I think research-wise, there was more that she was able to glean from that. And there was just so much exposure of Judy, especially earlier than this period. Just so much. Everybody knew who Judy Garland was. Not that, Billie Holiday wasn't famous and infamous, but just Judy couldn't go down the street without someone recognizing her. In fact, there's this one scene at a party, the only scene with Liza Minnelli in it, her daughter, and Liza's like, hey, we're gonna go to this other place, and she's like, no, I think I'll stay here. And she's like, are you sure you don't know anybody here? And she says, well, seems like everybody knows me. And and that's actually the scene where she meets Mickey Deans too.
Yeah, he's another character that I wanted to talk about because he's played by Finn Wittrock, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I just did not recognize him. I think he's an American Horror Story now, maybe. I'm not sure.
I don't know.
But I just did not recognize him. He was so vastly different than anything I've ever seen him in before in this role. It was really damn good. Like,
yeah, I thought he did do a good job. I think it was also something that they didn't focus quite enough on because as I was researching, he also was reportedly pretty abusive and controlling to her. And in this film, it's really just they kind of get together. It's fairly romanticized, I would say. Get together, and he's trying to get this deal to go through for her to have a chain of cinemas with her name on them to go through. And that does fall by the wayside. That part's true. Like, that deal did exist and did fall through, especially according to the people who worked at, I forgot the theater's name again. The people who worked at the theater, according to them, the people, the surviving people, is particularly Rosalind Wilder, she's played by Jessie Buckley in the movie, but the real life Rosalind did consult quite a bit on the film. When she was first approached by the director to, include her likeness and everything and have an interview and stuff, she was very skeptical of the film because she just thought, why can't they just let Judy rest? Like, she had such a hard time. But they also did really ramp up that character's involvement in the film, which I appreciated. And she said that it made for a good story too, but that she did in this interview make it clear that, like, she never had to barge into Judy's room to force her to get dressed and pull her to the stage. She did have to convince her to go on stage a few times, as is depicted in the film. But according to her, we were talking about Mickey Deans, I recall.
That's all right.
So according to her, her husband, who she married, the band leader Burt Rhodes, who's played by Royce Pearson. Just to mention, I don't know if it's really important. In real life, Burt was white, but he's portrayed very nicely by Royce Pearson. I thought both those characters were really great. But anyhow, one of the performances that was particularly rough, they had found out, some members of the band had found out that Mickey Deans had hidden microphones under the tablecloths and was recording the performance, which was very illegal, and the band was not getting paid for this recording, as they should have been. So he uncovered the microphones and found the tape recorder, and he took the tape. They actually had this tape, which was an awful recording. It was barely listenable to, according to Rosalind. But Zellweger was able to have it digitized and listened to get a feel for how Judy was during that performance.
Oh, wow.
Which I think was really cool. Just a little tidbit of history. And a really good article, too. The true story behind Judy, from the woman who worked with Judy Garland. And it's by Emily Zimler. Just so I feel like I said enough from that article that I knew. But yeah, I really thought it was interesting how involved she got to be with this film, especially given that she really didn't think it needed to happen.
Yeah, and I think her character was one of the more interesting aspects because she's like the audience's gateway into this, viewpoint into this film,
right? And
just like Jimmy Fletcher was the viewpoint for Billie Holiday. That's this is our insight into this woman, the tragedy she's going through, and I think as far as Mickey goes, I think they got his scumminess right. They don't really get his abusive dickishness, but they get his scumminess, right? Because there's a moment in the film where it's like you realize he's really not in this for her. He's really just in this kind of for the fame, the money.
Yeah, he thought he could make some bank off of her. There didn't seem to be much romantic interest at all, and Judy, she just wants someone to love and someone to love her. And when she, in the film, finds out that that's not really the case with Mickey, that's when she goes on stage and has that last really bad performance. And in the film, it's that scene with her and Mickey happens right after that scene with her and Sid, where Sid's like, the kids want to stay with her. And so that makes that scene, like, from the audience perspective, we're like, okay, I understand why she would not be in the right mindset to perform.
Yeah.
But neither of those things really happened on that day. I think on that day, she was actually suffering from the flu, and Mickey, as her manager at the time, was like, go get on stage and perform, even though she was saying, I don't think I can.
Jeez, yeah, that's the sad part about most of her life, is like most of her like daily schedule was so controlled and so precise, right? Like just from the beginning of her life with Wizard of Oz, like as you said, like she was doing a photo shoot with Mickey Rooney, right? Is it Mickey Rooney?
Yeah, Mickey Rooney.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and she's doing a photo shoot with him. And like they're like, you can't have a milkshake, you can't have a bite of this hamburger, you can't, you could just have like maybe one fry. That was it. Like everything was just so controlled, and it's just so sad that like when she gets older, it just all falls apart for her.
It did go both ways for the male and the female actors, the control, but it was particularly bad with the female actors. So Mickey did suffer some of the same abuse as Judy did with the control in his life. But obviously with the way our society, especially at the time, idealized what a male physique and a woman's physique were, he didn't have to go through the bullshit of not being able to eat food. Which she really did have to go on a chicken noodle soup diet. And that's just abuse. I mean, and obviously we know that now. And we don't allow studios to do that to people. At least if it became public news, we would be very upset about it.
Thankfully, yeah. For me, there's really just one other thing to talk about with Judy. I mean, maybe there's more on your end, but
Okay.
yeah, the only thing for me was you meet these two lovable men who are just super fans of Judy.
Right.
And
I believe their name is Dan and Stan.
Thank you. Oh, that's adorable. They're just wonderful. Who plays them? Let's get their names.
I believe it's Andy Nyman and Daniel Sercaria.
They're just two beautiful people that Judy meets just in passing, and they take her back to their apartment. I don't remember why. I think like maybe it started raining or everything was closed. That's it. They promised her a meal and everything was closed. They're like, why don't you just come back to our apartment? We'll make you some food. And it's just a beautiful moment in her life where she's finally surrounded by two people who do just love her. They don't want anything from her. They just want to be around her. They just want to talk with her. They
feel blessed that she's making a presence in her life. And I think it's a beautiful scene too. And I think it was added to just highlight that Judy was seen as a gay icon.
Yeah.
But sadly, they are fictional characters.
Yeah. I assumed they weren't.
Beautiful little addition to the film. I love them, and
yeah, especially how they drive that final that finale scene.
Right.
They have this beautiful moment that it almost moved me to tears because I was just like, oh, that's so close to me. It was so wonderful. Yeah, they lifted the film a lot for me too because it was starting to grind and it was starting to drag down, and I was just starting to get bored with it. And then they entered the scene, and I was just like, oh my god, they helped it a lot for me.
They did. You're right. They did help it a lot. I would say, obviously, given that those characters are fictional, that last scene that they helped with was something that was like movifying a actual thing that happened. And though I don't know if I want to give away the true thing, because I think it gives away what happened in the movie, and I think it's a very, very nice last scene that we should let the audience discover. But just know that the real life situation was much different, and after you watch the movie, if you want to look it up, the real life story is also very, very nice.
Yeah, I guess I'm just going to lead that into my closing statement because it's, I give it 2.5 stars, same score as Billie Holiday. I think it's more entertaining and a more driven story than Billie. I don't think it's as impactful. I think there's a lot to it that is still impactful. I just think Billie's story is more impactful, but this one was just better told. Together, they both just kind of disappeared for me. It's just like I've kind of forgotten about them after a couple days. I appreciate what they built in regards to the stories that I didn't really know or hadn't looked into. So I appreciated that, but I just feel like they weren't masterfully handled, and not every movie needs to be, but
no.
Yeah, I'm not saying rush out there to see either of these, but I do recommend them both.
Right. I would say full-faced movie. I already said that Renee's performance is great. Once again, I do think Andre's was a little stronger, but the film around her performance altogether, I think, is better than U.S. versus Holiday. But that being said, yeah, it's a full-faced movie. If you don't know too much about the latter part of Judy's life and you're a fan, or even just a fan of Wizard of Oz, go watch the movie. It's worth the watch, I would say. I don't think, though, I would watch it again, or at least not anytime soon.
Yeah, I can agree with that. So The Doors.
The Doors.
Yeah.
The Doors, which should just be called Morrison.
Yeah, it really should. You don't get much of The Doors at all.
No, not really.
Which is really sad because it's the same thing as like Bohemian Rhapsody, where it's like this is a movie about Queen, and it's like no, it's a movie about Freddie Mercury. Like,
and I think the sadder part about that is that Queen still goes on. Queen is still rocking it.
Yeah, and they were all part of that. I think they all consulted on it. Whereas with The Doors, I think one member of the band was a consultant, and
Right.
I'm not entirely sure about that, but
from what I read, I really was struggling on finding articles about this particular movie. But from what I read, a couple of them did consult with him, but a lot of what they were asked and the opinions that they gave were just ignored.
Yeah, I did read that too. I think the one that consulted, a lot of his suggestions were not listened to by Oliver Stone, which is kind of a stigma of Oliver Stone's. He doesn't really deliver the best accurate historical pieces. But the one specific who said that he was asked to help and refused was the guy who Kyle MacLachlan played.
I read that they had a falling out, he and Oliver Stone did.
Yeah.
Ray Manzarek.
And Jim Morrison is played amazingly by Val Kilmer, a very young Val Kilmer again. I loved him. Yeah, the story is just about Jim Morrison. He goes to wherever the film takes place. I can't remember where they're located.
It's California for sure. It starts out once he's in California. It's UCLA. That's the film school there.
Yeah, that's where he's just taking drugs and getting deep into poetry and all this wonderful philosophy stuff. And he meets Manzarek and the other members, and they just form the Doors. They start playing, and you just follow his life through the career and through the drugs, and it's just a wild, crazy trip throughout the whole movie.
Right. I mean, I feel like while both the other movies are focused on addiction, this movie is I feel like what Stone does well, at least for me, is that you feel like you are on these drugs with him.
Yeah.
At least that is captured. You're definitely on the outside looking in on the other two movies, and I think his goal as the director was to make you feel like you're just as fucking stoned or blitzed as he is.
They definitely put you into the driver's seat with him. I do give Oliver Stone props for that. My real problem was, though, it went on for so long. It just kept going. Movie. I don't remember how long it is, but I want to say it's 2 hours and 10, maybe 2 hours 15 minutes.
It felt like it had such an epic scope, but it's really only a very small amount of years, the rise and fall of the Doors. It's less than a decade, but it feels so much longer because this movie's length is incredibly long. You're right.
Yeah, and a lot of it just feels, again, like with Billie Holiday, it feels like the same. It just, each scene is just like another drug trip, another sexual encounter, another wacky adventure in the desert, or just crazy tripped out scenes while Val Kilmer just talks and delivers poetry and Jim Morrison's seductive tones.
I think the main thing that changes throughout the film that made me appreciate it a little bit more, at least on the drug focus that is, than the Billie Holiday movie, is that the people around Jim start realizing how toxic he is, whereas the beginning he's so charismatic that they're just drawn in. And they say several times that they see Jim as a shaman, which I feel like is a term that we do try to avoid nowadays.
Yeah, he's more of just
he's kind of a cult leader.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
He's definitely has that personality.
And a modern day philosopher.
Yeah, I would give him that. But he just is too obsessed with death and his self-pain, and honestly hiding from that pain. There's a point in the movie where one of the band members, I believe it is John Dinsmore, the character John Dinsmore, because like we said earlier, a lot of the Doors came out and said they didn't really like the interpretation of what went on. It's like, they're like, this is not the poet that we knew. Anyway, John Dinsmore, portrayed by Kevin Dillon, he says, "We took drugs to expand our mind, man." I'm adding on to that. Sorry. We said we took drugs to expand our mind, but now you're just using it to run away from pain. For someone who loves pain so much, you sure do run away from it a lot. I might be mixing a line from Robbie Krieger as well, who's played by Frank Whaley, who is the guitarist. So let's just build the band real quick. Jim does most of the writing, and he's the singer frontman. Ray is the inventor of that iconic organ sound that you just immediately recognize as the Doors.
Yeah.
And then Robbie's the guitarist, and John is on the drums.
And Robbie's the one who wrote the one song, right?
Yes. Why can't I name the song? But
On Fire.
On Fire, maybe it might. Something. That might be it. So, Baby Set My Fire. I suck.
Light My Fire. Come on, baby, light my fire.
Fire. Come on, baby, light my fire. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the one that like Robbie was the one who wrote it, and he was like very adamant. He's like, make sure that that the movie puts on a record that was my song and not Jim Morrison's.
Yeah. And that so definitely was the song that really kind of got them attention. And then I feel like the other songs that we feel, at least that I feel, are really iconically the Doors songs did not come out until their last album, like Riders on the Storm. That was very late and right before they broke up. Like I don't even think they even toured after that album has been.
Yeah, probably not. Personally, I do think a lot of their stuff is very... I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this. It's very one note. It all sounds the same. You hear the Doors,
though. Yeah, because there's a lot of people who agree with you. I'm a Doors fan myself, but yeah, I don't like that stuff in the middle, really, which is when Jim was at his worst, really.
Yeah,
at least according to this film.
I love his spoken poetry, though. When he just starts delivering his poetry like in the middle of it, and like if you listen to a lot of live songs and concerts, he was notorious for derailing concerts. Yeah. And it was terrible, and it's really well portrayed in the movie, but it's just like, he would start giving a concert and then just immediately start just doing spoken poetry or just bashing somebody, or not hitting somebody, but like bashing them verbally.
Well, he does hit somebody with a microphone in this, and it happened. I don't know if that's true at all, if that actually happened, but it was a funny movie moment, right? Where he like Lasso throws the microphone and it hits the guy, like the stage coordinator or something.
Oh, it's bad.
He also later he's got a bandage on his head,
right? He also throws a TV in the studio. Like when he gets mad, he just like takes his TV and just tosses it in the wall. Which apparently that like is verbatim from what Manzarek wrote in his own book. He wrote a novel about the life in the Doors.
So that scene was like right after he discovered that they sold one of the songs to a commercial.
Yeah. I think it was Light My Fire, actually. I think because I think it was I think the guitarist was like, "It's my words. I'm going to do with them what I want." He's
right, and he was like, "I thought we were going to do everything unanimously," and they were like, "You weren't here, Jim.
Yeah,
we tried to find you."
I loved how this movie looks into his relationship with the members more, because as we said with the other movies, they don't. Yeah, I wish there was, but it's more than the other two movies delivered in regards to the support that the main cast has. One of those bigger relationships was with his love interest, played by Meg Ryan. What's her name? Pam.
Yeah, Pamela Corson.
And she's wonderful. She's kind of whirlpools into his world where it's just, it just keeps getting worse and worse for her until she's at the center of his whirlpool, and it's just terrible.
Right, and she is so in love with him, and he claims to love her throughout the film, but she's definitely becomes very dependent upon him, and he is a chronic cheater. And I think from his point of view, he's not cheating. I think from his point of view, Pam knows that he's going to mess around because it kind of seems like it's part of his philosophy. And one of the characters that they really talk about and go into is this reporter, and she's also portrayed as being a witch in the movie. I don't know how true that is, but it's Patricia Keneally, played by Kathleen Quinlan, and that's a marvelous performance in this film too. I think I don't know how much of what they portrayed in the movie actually happened.
Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, I feel like with a lot of this film, it's embellished heavily by Oliver Stone, and I feel like that's one of the cases is probably her role in his life, but that's where they more explore his obsession with death too, is like through her. Yeah, they both kind of, at least she thinks her own obsession with death is on par with his, but from the film you could tell his is just way out there. Yeah, and but she definitely catapults him to like new levels of exploring that obsession, and it's I feel like that's some of the more trippier moments in the whole movie, and I really loved that aspect of it. But honestly, for most of this film, it was just another disappointment for me. I don't know. Yeah, that's fair. I did kind of feel that way too. Like I feel like there was a lot of potential in all three films, and they just all three could have been better. I think this particular movie could have done with some paring down. It's horribly long. Oh yeah. And there's definitely some scenes in there that I thought were fun and interesting, but didn't need to happen. I feel like we kind of rushed past Meg Ryan a little bit. Oh yeah, sure. When the reviews for this movie came out, they were pretty rough on her. Like, really? They said her performance had no personality. And really, geez. I honestly thought she did a pretty good job. It's a 90s movie. Women really just were not written very well. Right. Until maybe you can consider them being written well recently. But even with that, I thought she did a great job. I don't know why they were so down on her. Yeah, I don't know why either, because, you know, with the other two films, we're given a vocal or a focal point from outside of the main character. You know, Jimmy Fletcher for Billie Holiday, and I can't remember her name from Judy, the lady played by Jessie Buckley. Rosalind Wilder. Thank you, Rosalind. Yeah, and whereas with The Doors, we're put in Jim Morrison's shoes. So if she didn't have a personality, it's because that's kind of how Jim Morrison would have saw her. I feel like that's really harsh of the critics to attack her like that, because just how she was involved in his life, I guess. They said some things about Val Kilmer's performance too in the old reviews I was reading. They said while physically his performance was on point, he did not allow the audience into his emotions. And I don't know if I can agree with that. At the very least, I was so impressed by his physical performance and his vocal performance that I did not feel that Jim was not a real person. I felt that he was very focused on whatever was going on in his head. He just was Jim Morrison. It's probably honestly the best Val Kilmer role I've ever seen. I mean, again, like, I feel like the critics just weren't paying attention, because it's like, yeah, there's not much emotion to his character, but that's because Jim Morrison hid his emotion. You know, that's right, yeah. He buried it into his lyrics, into his poetry. God, that's just so weird that critics would like see it. But I mean, as critics, we're always missing the point. You know, it's right. We're always fucking it up. Making up our own point. Yeah, seriously. That doesn't exist. And also in these reviews, I think that the people that were reviewing it just weren't fans of the band in general. And yeah, probably. Why then even bother reviewing a film about the band? Though I guess just to bitch about it. We need something to bitch. We're men. Yeah, that's true. It's our crux, man. But no, I agree. I think it's one of the better Val Kilmer performances I've ever seen. I mean, up there with Batman and Top Secret, let's be honest.
Batman. No, Top Secret, seriously. Top Secret, he's very good at that movie.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
We talked about that movie.
Our first episode, man.
First episode, yeah. Long time ago, it feels like, even though it was less than a year ago.
Yeah, I think this is our 48th episode that we've recorded.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know if it's our 48th that's going to be, published in that order, but in regards to recording, I think so. Wow. We're getting close to the big 5-0, man.
Damn.
Oh, damn.
Oh, damn. We're almost 50. If you combine our age, we are over 50.
Why'd you gotta do that?
I know.
You gotta hurt me like this, man. Now I gotta go and take drugs. That's what American entertainers do.
No. They realize that their fame and youth are fleeting. And so they hurt themselves.
Oh. Fun fact about Jim Morrison, though, he's one of the members of the 27 Club, and I'm very close to not being in that club. I'm only a couple months away, and I've made it. But
I think you'll make it. Oh God, I crossed.
Knocking on all the wood now.
Yeah, right next to the microphone. Knocked on wood.
Not only was Jim Morrison a member of that club, which, if you don't know, the 27 Club are famous entertainers who died at the age of 27. But so is his girlfriend, Pam Corson. She also died at the age of 27, I think a few years later, yeah. Yeah, Jim Morrison passed. But other famous members are, Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin, Amy Winehouse. There's a lot of people in that group. It's sad.
Yeah, brilliant people that just couldn't handle the world. Well, all right. I think, did we do closing statements for this film?
I don't think we rated it at the very least.
No,
I think we.
Yeah,
I
think though we're at the close of it.
I give it 2.5 stars, same as the others. Very long, good tale of destruction and addiction. I like the attempt at an epic. I always like an epic saga story.
Right.
So I enjoyed that, but I don't know. Just the directing kind of just felt misguided. Felt a little bloated. I don't know.
I can agree with all that. I gotta say, I enjoyed watching this movie. A little bit more than the other two. My enjoyment, though, I don't know if that's that's not the only factor I give in when I'm grading a film. I think the fact that Stone obviously went against the consulting of the people being portrayed in this film, that for that reason it should be docked some points. But it's still, for me, a full-faced movie, though I'm not gonna go around saying this is the best movie in the world. But if you want a fun, trippy movie, I don't know if fun's the right word, because there is some harrowing moments. But if you want to watch a movie that highlights a rock star as a cult leader, this is a good place to go. It's pretty interesting to me. To me, I found the film very interesting. And I guess that's what I'll say about it.
But who wins? Do you think it's being more entertaining as the winner makes it the winner of the threesome?
As we've been talking about it, I think I changed my mind a little bit, because I was thinking I would end up on The Doors, and that would be a very controversial decision. But I think I am going to give it to Judy, because for one, I do think that it's worth noting the inaccurate portrayal of the people that were approached and asked if their likeness could be portrayed, and it was just absolutely ignored in The Doors. So I think that's important to note, and for that reason I think I'll dock it down and give it to Judy, because it is a strong movie. It just, I felt like there was something missing about it, but I felt that way about all three of the movies. And if I could split my if I could give a little special award for just best performance, it would probably go to Andra Day. I thought she was amazing. But all three of the leading performances were great. But I think all around, Judy's the strongest movie. So
yeah, I'm in agreement. I give it to Judy. As you said, they were all three just a little disappointing for something. Of the three stories that we had chosen, the one I was most excited for was Billie Holiday. I felt that one had the most to offer. It had the most unique story, and there's so much it could build off of, so much it could parallel, so much hurt it could deliver. And I felt like the direction of it was just so disappointing.
It's a bit one note on its
focus. Yeah, and it was a little painful because it's like there was so much there that they could have delivered that I do think was delivered, but it just wasn't delivered as impactfully as it should have been.
Yeah, I think it was important for that pain to be there. Like I said, it was painful, but there was more things to focus on. Or, like, I wish they focused on why she was an addict a little bit more. They do, like, just briefly mention her backstory a little bit. And that's it.
Yeah, and it's sad, and the only reason it doesn't win for me is because it was the one that disappointed me the most. But with The Doors, I got what I was expecting. It was fine. I would hold Billie Holiday up above The Doors, honestly. I think for me, it was more entertaining of the two. But Judy just delivered, kind of more than what I expected. But I would agree with you, even though I say that Renee Zellweger's performance is on par with Andra Day. I would give her the award for Andra Day the award for best of the three because I do think her performance was just brilliant. Like,
it was good, all
around amazing. But yeah, Judy wins the threesome, and it wasn't an exciting threesome, honestly. I think all three of them were.
I do hope that you couch potatoes out there enjoyed listening to it, and I do think that particularly, I'll even say that I'm kind of changing my mind. I don't know if I'm necessarily changing my mind. It's just what I know that most people would enjoy. I think I recommend United States versus Billie Holiday and Judy over The Doors. Mm-hmm. I know I got kind of a unique taste when it comes to films. I like strange.
Yeah.
And so if you're looking for that, go for The Doors. But the stories of these two women, I think, are more impactful.
That's fair. I guess you would say that you recommend the stories of those two more, but the movie of The Doors more.
The movies, all three movies were left a little bit to be desired. But yes, if you want to know more about Judy and Billie, go check out these movies.
And I think that's the show.
Yeah.
I've been the Green Traveler.
And I've been the Faceless Leon. Everybody, addiction is real. And it is a disease. This might be a bit of a dour note, but if you have someone in your life who is struggling, just know that you can help them. They need help. They don't need ridicule, and just do what you can to provide that. And it's hard. And sometimes you can't help them, and that's even harder. But
even if helping is just lending them an ear, that's sometimes that's all people need is just somebody who'll listen to them.
All right, well, we love you all very, very much. Safe travels, and good night. Green and Faceless on the Couch is a proud production of Fiction Works 19. If you like the show, please show your support by rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts. Like, follow, subscribe, wherever you might listen. We also now have a Patreon account. If you feel so inclined to support us in a financial manner, please become a patron by visiting patreon.com/greenandfaceless. You can also find more information about us on our Facebook account or on the Fiction Works 19 Instagram account. Thank you so much for listening.